Are you someone with crushing student loan debt looking for student loan forgiveness? In this video, we are going to clarify everything about the student loan forgiveness plan. We'll talk about the original plan, what was promised by President Biden during his election campaign, then the roadblocks. Why has that not been completely implemented? Then we'll talk about plan B. What has Biden administration planned now as an alternative and who may qualify under this plan B? And finally, I'll tell you that more than $100 billion worth of loan has already been forgiven. So we'll check if your loan might have already qualified under this. College costs have doubled over the last 40 years and student loan debt has increased by 66%, reaching a whooping $1.77 trillion according to data from Federal Reserve. That's a financial challenge for many. So as of early 2023, student loan debt is massive, 1.77 trillion, as I just said. Over 92% of that is federal debt, which is managed by Department of Education. The rest of the debt is private student loans. In the 2020-2021 academic year, about 54% of the graduate students who graduated, they carried an average net student loan debt of $29,100. As wages continue to struggle and debt, many are struggling in meeting their life goals like starting a family or buying a home because they're struggling with their student loan debt. That is why student loan was a central theme in President Joe Biden's election campaign. President Biden aimed to cancel up to $20,000 per borrower and stated this clearly in his campaign. President Biden's aim was to ease the student loan debt problem for low to middle income borrowers. Plan included targeted debt relief with up to $20,000 worth of loan forgiven for Pell Grant recipients and $10,000 for others. And all this was for considering individuals whose income was below $125,000 per year. If implemented, that plan would have provided relief to 43 million borrowers. And it would have meant that for about 20 million of those borrowers, their entire student loan debt would have been forgiven. But this plan faced its biggest hurdle in June of last year. In June, the US Supreme Court blocked President Biden's student loan forgiveness plan, stating that it exceeded the authority that the Secretary of Education has. The 6-3 decision by the Supreme Court dashed hope of those millions of student loan borrowers who were hoping that their loan will get cancelled.
Out of the Supreme Court, the court just ruled that the Biden administration's student loan forgiveness plan is unconstitutional.
So the court had to consider whether Department of Education Secretary had the power to forgive student loan under a specific law known as the HEROES Act. But the court ruled that the law does not grant Secretary that authority to cancel student loans. Here is what Chief Justice John Roberts said. We hold today that the Act allows the Secretary to waive or modify existing statutory or regulatory provisions applicable to financial assistance programs under the Education Act, but not to rewrite that statute from the ground up. The court invoked the so-called Major Questions Doctrine as part of this ruling. Major Questions Doctrine is a legal theory that holds that the legislative branch, which is Congress, must explicitly give certain authority to executive branch for things which are of significant economic or political value. But despite the Supreme Court blocking the $20,000 loan relief that Biden administration had planned, the administration has not backed down. So in a surprising twist, they have already overseen forgiveness of up to $132 billion in student loan debt. How are they doing that? So Biden's original plan A hinged on the HEROES Act, which allowed for debt cancellation during national emergencies. But Supreme Court already ruled that that was unconstitutional. So now White House is relying on Higher Education Act as their plan B to cancel student loan debt. Dating back to 1965, the Higher Education Act shaped college funding, governing grants, federal aids, and other student aid programs. It grants the Education Secretary authority to compromise, waive, or release federal student loans. But this Plan B for student debt relief has a much narrower focus, looking to help the most vulnerable among the student loan borrowers. The Education Department has proposed relief for 4 major groups. First is those whose balance exceed the amount that they borrowed. And how can that happen? If they have never paid the principal and the interest continues to accrue, they now owe much more than they originally borrowed. In that scenario, the Education Department has decided to forgive all the excess loan and bring the amount that they owe to the original amount that they borrowed. Second is the 25-year repayment rule. So the borrowers who have been in the loan for 25 years, which is about 300 months, by July 1st, 2025 would see their remaining balance just waived off. And mind it, this 25 years include any period where there were non-payment or deferment, that's all fine. So entire COVID period is included in this 25 years. Third, very interesting are the programs with insufficient value. So if you attended a career training program which resulted in a much higher loan but not much return on the training that you received, so your earnings are not matching the debt that you owed, or the college or education institution charged much higher rate of interest on that debt, such loans might be completely forgiven. Fourth are the untapped relief programs. The government had certain loan programs that always existed. Chief among them is Public Service Loan Forgiveness, PSLF, or Income Driven Repayment Plan, IDR. If you are eligible for any of these programs but never applied, you may still get relief. The relief will be according to the terms of those programs. The Education Department is also considering extending this relief to a fifth group, those facing financial hardship. Now, the criteria for those has not really been defined, but those could potentially include folks whose, say, school has been closed, or those who have both parents who themselves have student loans, or who are Pell Grants recipients, or folks who are receiving Medicare, or folks who are struggling to provide childcare, or someone who has simply declared bankruptcy. Some of those folks may be eligible for relief under this fifth category, which is still being evaluated. If you fall into any of these categories, the four primary categories that I spoke about earlier and potential a fifth category, then be on a lookout for announcements. And don't be in a rush to pay your student loans. They might even get cancelled. But wait, it's also possible that you may have already qualified and your debt may have already been cancelled. In fact, President Biden has cancelled student loan of up to 3.7 million Americans through various actions. In response to the Supreme Court decision, the Biden administration first looked at cancelling the student debt loans under the IDR, which of course stand for Income Driven Repayment Plan. Under IDR, the student loan payments are deferred if the borrower's income falls below a certain limit. But one major problem with the original IDR is that interests continue to accrue on the outstanding loans, even when repayments are deferred. To avoid that problem, Biden Education launched a new program called SAVE. SAVE stands for Saving on Valuable Education. Now, regular announcements are being made under SAVE to help different category of borrowers. The latest announcement was done on January 19, 2024. This included debt relief of up to $5 billion for 74,000 Americans. That included teachers, nurses, and firefighters. This student loan relief, which has been announced, can be broken into two major categories. First category is administrative adjustments to the IDR payments. This helps about 30,000 borrowers who had concern around the loan servicers misusing the forbearance period, and these special category of borrowers may see their loans completely forgiven. The second one is under the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program, the PSLF. So this will see about 43,000 borrowers being included for loan debt forgiveness. To apply for this specific student loan debt relief, please visit studentloan.gov/save and consider applying for this SAVE initiative. It's honestly a step towards easing the burden for millions of borrowers. If you found some value in this information, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel. And don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments. Do you support this plan of cancelling certain student loan debts? If not, why? We love hearing your perspectives. Till next time, bye.